Stanley Bert Eisen was born in Upper Manhattan, New York City. Both of his parents are Jewish. He was the second of two children. His sister Julia is 2 years older. Their mother came from a family that fled Nazi Germany for Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and then to New York City. His father's parents were from Poland. Stanley was raised Jewish, although he did not consider his family very observant, and did not celebrate his bar mitzvah. His parents listened to classical music and light opera. Stanley was greatly moved by Beethoven's works. Stanley's right ear was misshapen from a birth defect called microtia. He was unable to hear on that side. He found it difficult to determine the direction of a sound, and he could not understand speech in a noisy environment. Attending PS 98, he was taunted by other children for his deformed ear. Despite his hearing problem, Stanley enjoyed listening to music, and he watched American Bandstand on television. His favorite musical artists included Eddie Cochran, Dion and the Belmonts, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Little Richard. Stanley learned to sing harmony with his family, and he was given a child's guitar at age 7. Stanley's family relocated to the Kew Gardens neighborhood in Queens in 1960. He listened to a lot of doo-wop music, but when the Beatles and the Rolling Stones played on U.S. television, he was inspired by the performance aspect, which he thought was not out of his reach. Stanley received his first real guitar at age 13, an acoustic one that he would have preferred to be electric. All through his childhood, Stanley had been recognized for his talent in graphic arts, so he attended the High School of Music and Art in New York City and graduating in 1970. Before Kiss, Stanley was in a local band, Rainbow, and was a member of Uncle Joe and post-war Baby Boom. Through a mutual friend of Gene Simmons, Stanley joined Simmons' band Wicked Lester in the early 1970s. The band recorded an album in 1972, but it was never officially released. Wicked Lester fell apart, and Stanley and Simmons answered Peter Criss's advertisement in Rolling Stone. Soon after recruiting Criss, they held auditions for a lead guitarist, with Stanley placing an ad in the Village Voice. Ace Frehley won the group over with his playing, and was nearly a perfect fit to the group's sound. Kiss released their self-titled debut album in February 1974. At this point, Stanley had the idea of changing his name not only for marketing purposes, but also the fact he had always hated his birth name. Inspired by Paul McCartney and Paul Rogers, he legally changed his name to Paul Stanley. Stanley's persona in Kiss was the star child displaying one star over his right eye. For a brief time, Stanley tried out a new character, the Bandit, with a Lone Ranger-style mask design makeup pattern. This makeup design was used during a few 1973-74 shows and photo shoots, some of which he was photographed with both designs in the same session. In 2007, Stanley was hospitalized with tachycardia. In his absence, Kiss performed live as a trio for the first time in decades. The concert was the first Kiss performance Stanley missed. During the first leg of the band's final tour, Stanley was accused by fans of lip-syncing and using backing tracks. In response to the allegations, Stanley did not confirm nor deny that he lip-syncs on stage, saying he is taking care of his voice. Accusations were later revived by fans following the band's performance in Belgium on June 2022, when a slip-up occurred with the fireworks and drum cues a measure late on the opening song Detroit Rock City. Doc McGee, the band's manager, later confirmed simultaneously that Stanley did sing fully, but will sing 2 tracks, denying that he was lip-syncing. In 1982, after he turned 30 years old, Stanley had reconstructive surgery for the microtia in his right ear done by Frederick Ruckert, who had been performing the procedure primarily on children. The new ear was formed from cartilage from one of the singer's ribs with skin grafts put over it. Stanley said the surgery had given him a new lease on life and was so grateful to Ruckert that he gave the doctor a Rolex watch upon his retirement. Because of this birth defect, Stanley is an ambassador for the charitable organization About Face, an organization that provides support and information to people with facial differences. He has appeared at fundraising events and in videos to raise awareness. Stanley has had 2 hip replacement surgeries, one after the Rock the Nation tour in October 2004, and a second in December 2004 after complications arose from the first surgery. He had announced in 2005 that he will require a 3rd hip surgery in the future. He regards the degeneration of his left hip as partly the product of thousands of shows performed in platform booths since the early 1970s. Stanley released his first solo album, Paul Stanley, as part of the 4 simultaneously released Kiss solo albums. but he has rarely recorded or performed outside of Kiss. He wrote and recorded material for another album in 1987-88, but it was shelved in favor of the Kiss compilation, Smashes, Thrashes and Hits. While never officially released, songs such as Don't Let Go and When Two Hearts Collide have circulated as bootleg recordings. One song from the project, Time Traveler, was released as part of Kiss' 2001 box set. In 1989, Stanley embarked on a brief club tour. His touring band included guitarist Bob Kulick and future Kiss drummer Eric Singer. The same year, Stanley shared lead vocals with Desmond Child on the title track for the soundtrack of the Wes Craven horror film Shocker. 28 years after releasing his first solo album, Stanley released a second album, Live to Win, on October 2006. Its title song, Live to Win, appears in the South Park episode Make Love Not Warcraft. In October and November 2006, Stanley embarked on a theater tour in support of Live to Win. His touring band was the house band from the CBS TV show Rockstar. In April 2007, Stanley extended the tour to include Australia, playing in Coolangatta, Wollongong, Newcastle, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth and Adelaide.